Well, first he needs to make sure he go out there and play right. You know, a lot of the film we saw was him stopping going. Can he do that after coming out of a torn ACL torn Achilles?
It was an ACL, yeah.
Torn ACL? I don't know.
There's got to be a fire burning to prove people wrong.
Kyler Murray's worst nightmare is officially coming true. What started out as an out there theory that I proposed a few months ago in the offseason is starting to get some legs. So before we get to the content, I'm officially back in Los Angeles. I'm gonna be spamming you guys with giveaway codes on my Instagram story, on my Snapchat story. We're gonna be announcing giveaway winners on X as well for copies of Madden 24. If you have Madden 24, we'll also give away codes so you can get points or just gift cards to your console. And now that we got all that out of the way, break! Ladies and gentlemen, the NFL is finally back.
That's impossible!
But I'm gonna admit, the preseason is boring as shit. I mean, when the second stringers and third stringers come out, your boy does tend to fall asleep a little bit. But I found a way to make the preseason all the more interesting. Because, ladies and gentlemen, we are back! Posting prize picks on the days that there are significant preseason games. Starting from the Hall of Fame game all the way to the Super Bowl, your boy is going to be making picks on his Instagram story. The picks are free. All you have to do is follow me on Instagram to get them. And if you haven't signed up for prize picks, right now when you use my promo code Mikerophone, you'll double your deposit up to $100. And thank you, Prize Picks, for the sponsorship. Mike check 1212. What's going on, everybody? Do you remember when Kyler Murray was coming off of his Heisman Trophy winning season, which happened to be during Josh Rosen's rookie year? The Arizona Cardinals were in a situation like this before. They already had their quarterback of the future in Josh Rosen, who looked very confident to say the least.
Absolutely the best quarterback in the draft, by far. I want to go to the team that wants me the most. I want to win Super Bowls, and I want to have the most. So I'm coming for Tom Brady's record, and I plan on getting picked pretty early.
The Cardinals had the worst record in the NFL under first-time head coach Steve Wilks and ended up with the #1 overall pick. They then fired Steve Wilks, hired a head coach who said this about Kyler Murray back when he was in college.
Kyler is, he's a freak, man. Purdy's a really good young player, and he's going to be a tremendous player, but Kyler is a freak, and I've followed him since he was a sophomore.
And even took a meeting with Nick Bosa, who predicted the future.
We went to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and had dinner with Nick Bosa. And I'll never forget, he puts his arm around me and Cliff Kingsbury, both of us, in basically a headlock. You guys are probably going to end up taking that little quarterback. And if you do, he looked over at me and said, Steve, I will haunt you for the rest of your career.
Because although Kyler Murray did not look like a draft bust at all whatsoever, and although the Arizona Cardinals continued on an upward trajectory during his duration there was something off about this team. Following his rookie year, the Cardinals made a remarkable move, probably the best move of the Kyler Murray era, by trading a package built around David Johnson for DeAndre Hopkins. This resulted in the best season of Kyler Murray's career and an 8-8 record. Arizona Cardinals looked dominant as ever to start the 2021 season. It was fantastic football to watch. They opened up with a 7-game win streak, but unfortunately would finish with an 11-6 record and would actually drop 4 out of their final 5 games. And in the wild card round versus the Los Angeles Rams, Kyler Murray would absolutely melt down. And this meltdown was the beginning of the end for Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals. Things got really strange at this point. Kyler would only throw for 137 yards, throw 2 horrible interceptions, and the eventual Super Bowl champion LA Rams would dismantle the Arizona Cardinals 34-11. Shortly after, things would get weird. Kyler Murray would scrub his social media of everything that included the Arizona Cardinals, then would begin stamping his feet demanding a contract extension. He would even have his agent write a crazy tiny essay stating why Kyler deserved a contract extension, which at this point I will admit is a little atypical, because if you're a quarterback that is very confident in his abilities, you want to wait as long as you possibly can to get a contract extension. Demanding a contract extension prematurely just implies that you don't have confidence in your ability to keep this up, because your ability ability to reset the market goes away. But regardless, the Arizona Cardinals would fold, paying Kyler Murray a 5-year, $230.5 million contract extension. But even that wasn't without its controversy, because leading up to the contract extension, a huge problem that the Cardinals had with Kyler Murray was the fact that they didn't think he was mature enough. They didn't think he was a vocal leader. They wanted him to grow as a leader. So what did they do? They put in a video game clause in his contract, which was even more controversial. They would eventually take out the video game clause, which just implied that they had no confidence in themselves and just further demonstrated that they had no idea what they were doing. So going into last season was a very big season for the Cardinals, and going into last season, they did everything they possibly could to make sure Kyler Murray was in a situation to succeed once again. Now, here's the thing. If the Cardinals wanted, they could have just not paid Kyler Murray and have him go out there to prove himself once again. They traded for Marquise Hollywood Brown to make sure that they had a fill-in for DeAndre Hopkins, who was going to be unavailable for the first 6 games of the season. The Cardinals performed horribly throughout the season, and throughout that season, you saw Kyler Murray getting into it with Cliff Kingsbury. There were questions about Kyler's maturity once again. Kyler and the Cardinals would go 3-8 before Kyler Murray would sustain a season-ending injury. And this makes it seem like the Arizona Cardinals truly made a horrific mistake, because Kyler Murray tore his ACL on December 12th, 2022. It typically takes about a year to recover from such an injury. Now, we've seen players come back from it sooner, but when you consider the fact that you're away from football for almost a year, you're coming back towards the end of the season, there's a very real possibility that Kyler Murray is going to be out for the duration of the season. And what should give Kyler Murray even less confidence about his current situation is the decisions that the Cardinals have been making ever since this injury went down. I mean, for one, let's talk about the fact that the man that went out to bat for him, the man that quite literally had a crush on him, Cliff Kingsbury, was fired when the season began. So there was a huge question about who was going to coach the Arizona Cardinals next. Well, originally the hottest head coaching candidate was Sean Payton, who would be able to lure him out of retirement. Bear in mind that Sean Payton took the Denver Broncos job in spite of Russell Wilson, according to Terry Bradshaw. Terry Bradshaw also said that Payton didn't want the Cardinals job because of Kyler Murray. So he looked at Russell Wilson, who had his own office, and the Denver Broncos, who were a complete show last year, and chose the 34-year-old QB that is under contract for the next 5 years, that is getting paid as much as Kyler Murray for the next 5 years, over the young up-and-coming Cardinals that are currently experiencing a brief little hiccup in their development. That's saying something. But the Cardinals would eventually get Jonathan Gannon, who had a remarkable season with the Philadelphia Eagles defense, even though he kind of got exposed in the Super Bowl by Andy Reid multiple times by not making the most simplest of defensive adjustments. But in addition to that, there was a brand new regime. And you know what we say on this channel, whenever there's a brand new regime, there's a good chance that there's going to be some cleaning up. If there's one thing that the Arizona Cardinals of old had, is they had a tremendous amount of talent. From J.J. Watt to DeAndre Hopkins, they drafted relatively well. James Conner had a resurgence. Kyler Murray is a solid QB. But there was a lot of instability on that team and in that front office. And it seemed like there was no intensity, at least based upon Hard Knocks in season. It didn't look like there was a lot of intensity. So in comes the brand new regime, and the brand new regime made some big moves over the offseason. The first one being trading down from the number 3 overall pick to the number 12 overall pick in the NFL draft. The Cardinals sent the 3rd pick to Houston. The Texans would take edge rusher Will Anderson. The Cardinals would go all the way back to the 12th pick in the 1st round. They would get the 33rd pick in the 2nd round, and they would get a 1st and 3rd round pick in 2024. In addition to that, they made a move that kind of made us raise an eyebrow here. They threw a dart at the dartboard by selecting Clayton Tune in the 5th round of the NFL draft. Could you imagine if they selected Dorian Thompson-Robinson? At least the Cardinals would have some more excitement going into this season. But the one strange thing about this is you haven't heard much about the quarterback competition in Arizona. Think about it for a second. How much did you hear about Tampa Bay's quarterback competition between Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask this year? What about with the Indianapolis Colts, Anthony Richardson versus Gardner Minshew, even though Anthony Richardson won that pretty early on? What about the San Francisco 49ers? That was a huge deal. Brock Purdy versus Trey Lance versus Sam Darnold. But you didn't hear anything about the Arizona Cardinals QB competition. Who's going to be the starting quarterback quarterback for the Cardinals this year. Kyler Murray might be out this entire season. You didn't hear anything about it. But on top of the fact that you don't know anything about who's starting for the Cardinals this year, how about what they've done recently? I mean, first things first, Marquise Hollywood Brown, the wide receiver one of the Cardinals, looks terrible. I mean, look at this video. He can't separate at all from Byron Murphy Jr. in this clip. This is horrible. That's the wide receiver one for the Arizona Cardinals. But even more telling is the recent decision by the Arizona Cardinals to make a plethora of trades. Now, the first trade that they made the other day is very telling about the future of this franchise. If you remember, I tweeted on X, or I posted on X, that Kyler Murray really wanted the Arizona Cardinals to draft CeeDee Lamb with their first round pick in the NFL draft in 2020, because Kyler Murray and CeeDee Lamb were teammates on Oklahoma. And if there's one thing that we've seen recently, and at least Kyler didn't see this back then, but we've seen recently, it's if you take your number one overall pick QB and you pair him with his favorite target in college, good things will happen. Now, what did the Cardinals do instead? They didn't draft Tristan Wirfs to protect Kyler Murray. They didn't draft a brand new number one wide receiver for Kyler Murray. They decided to select Isaiah Simmons with that pick. Now, I know what people are going to say here.
Mike, they traded for DeAndre Hopkins that offseason.
Yeah, but the timeline of DeAndre Hopkins and CeeDee Lamb would have lined up perfectly in this scenario. They could have probably moved on from DeAndre Hopkins relatively quickly. They traded for Hollywood Brown last season, for crying out loud. Now, the worst part of all is the Arizona Cardinals would trade Isaiah Simmons to the New York Giants for a 7th round pick on Thursday. That's not the only move that they would make, by the way. The Arizona Cardinals also traded offensive tackle Josh Jones to the Houston Texans. But what's even stranger is they would trade a 5th round pick to the Cleveland Browns for Josh Dobbs, which means their quarterback competition can't be going over well currently. So they pretty much traded Isaiah Simmons and Josh Jones and received Josh Dobbs and a 7th round pick. That's not really a good sign of asset management, or at least hitting on your picks in years past. Now, I know what you're going to say. Isaiah Simmons' contract was going to expire. We probably weren't going to bring him back, and that's a fair thing to say. But all of these are indicative of the direction that the Cardinals are going in. And even more so, the Arizona Cardinals are privately telling people that Kyler Murray is more than likely not expected to play this year. Now, this isn't a bold take. Bear in mind, he suffered a torn ACL in December 12, 2022. It might take him a year to recover. By the time he recovers, it's almost time for the playoffs. The Cardinals aren't even going to be in the picture, at least that's what I'm assuming. So there's no point for him to come back. There's no point of trotting him out there for a week or two. Now, the Cardinals gave Murray a 5-year, $230.5 million contract extension in July of 2022. A lot has changed for the organization since then in a negative way. The team changed head coaches and a general manager, has lost multiple core players, and could look to draft USC sensation Caleb Williams if they pick number 1 overall. Oh man. So now Kyler Murray finds himself in the exact same situation that Josh Rosen was in, although he did have some good seasons under center. I don't think Kyler Murray's that bad of a player, but I do have a huge philosophy when it comes to quarterbacks under a rookie scale contract. If you're not able to win a Super Bowl or even get close to a Super Bowl with your QB on a rookie scale contract, you're not going to be able to get there when you're paying your quarterback as the 6th highest paid quarterback in the NFL. So it looks like Kyler Murray's future is really uncertain. And the crazy part is, I don't even know what the market for Kyler Murray would be. I mean, what do you trade for a player that is getting paid $230.5 million over the next 5 years? His contract extension hasn't even kicked in yet. So it's a huge mess of a situation because Caleb Williams is really hyped up as a once-in-a-generation like Trevor Lawrence-like prospect. So what do you do in this situation if you're the Cardinals? Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.